Manifest destiny. The phrase manifest destiny is used to mean the inevitability and righteousness of the American expansion westward. It meant that America was destined to stretch across the continent from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific. So during the early 1800s, a lot of Americans felt this way. They felt that it was destiny for America to stretch across the continent from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific, that it was destined for America to keep expanding and cover as much of North America as possible. Some believed that this was destined by God, some just believed that it would be economically profitable, and so America should keep expanding. The phrase itself was coined by editor John O'Sullivan to promote the annexation of Texas and the Oregon Country. And the annexation would be if the United States annexed or took in Texas and the Oregon Country, if the United States made those part of America, and they would have to then either make them states or divide them up into states. The idea was lent further credence by the work of Horace Greeley, the journalist responsible for the admonition, "Go west, young man." Now, when Horace Greeley wrote this, he was saying, go west because in the west there is fertile land. You can go and make a life for yourself out there, as opposed to in the east where the big cities had a lot of poverty and a lot of unemployment. So westward expansion was seen as the solution to that problem. If you went west and were willing to work hard, you could make a life for yourself and you could have a much better life than you could living in the cities. So manifest destiny was coined by John O'Sullivan and was further promoted by Horace Greeley in his admonition, "Go west, young man." Now, besides this mythology of manifest destiny, there were some sound reasons why the United States expanded westward. There was cheap and fertile land in the west. The fertile farmland available in the United States proper, the area that had been divided by states and was well settled, that area was already claimed by people. So you would have to pay more money to get that farmland, and it would have already been used, so it may not be as fertile as it once was, where in the West there was land that hadn't been farmed yet. There was land that was cheap and fertile, and it could give you a good life if you were willing to go out there and work hard. In addition, the more land that was claimed by the Americans, the less there was that could be claimed by the British. So, even though the British wasn't supposed to be claiming any new land in the Americas, that was always a threat if there was land that had been unclaimed by any country. So if the Americans expanded westward and took over certain areas of land, that meant there was less land Britain could lay claim to. Americans also had an eye towards claiming western ports to begin trading with Asia. If they had ports along the western coast, they could sail straight across to Asia. They wouldn't have to go all the way across Europe to get to Asia, or just pay different amounts of money to the British, who could export goods from the Asian countries and then send them over to America. But Americans would be paying more money for that because they would have to travel further. If Americans could just have their own port cities, Asian countries could send their own ships over, sell their own goods to Americans directly, and Americans could also launch out of those western port cities and trade with the Asian countries. So the Americans did have an eye on getting western port cities built up. The fur trading industry, or fur trapping industry, made the Oregon country more appealing and the discovery of gold in a California stream generated even more excitement over the economic potential of the West. So, people realized that trapping animals for their fur and trading and selling those furs was becoming more lucrative, and there were a lot of animals to be trapped in this open Oregon country. And then in California, gold was discovered in a stream, and this led to even more excitement over the economic potential of the West. They realized that there was gold to be had there was farming to be had there was fur trapping to be had there was a lot of economic potential in the West, and so that gave another sound reason to why Americans wanted to expand westward. And finally, many Americans felt that they would only be benefiting the world by spreading their ideas of liberty and democracy across as much land as possible. So some countries, especially in South America, had already identified with the United States. They had already declared their own independence, they had formed their own small countries, and they wanted to try to have a democracy like America did. They wanted to be free, they wanted their liberty, their personal liberties, and so other countries were already following America as a model. So now the Americans felt that they would only be benefiting the world if they brought their values, their ideals of liberty and democracy to other areas of the world. So if they spread across as much land as possible, promoting these ideals or spreading them as they spread the United States, basically, as they made the United States larger and encompassing more land, those values would be spread to those areas because they would be a part of the United States as well. So manifest destiny is the term used to describe the inevitability and righteousness of American expansion westward, of the American expansion across the continent to spread from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific. And it meant that this was going to happen, this was inevitable, and that the righteousness meant that it was destined to happen. This was a good thing. Many believed it was destined by God. Others believed it just should happen because of the economic potential there. The term was coined by John O'Sullivan to promote annexation of Texas and the Oregon Country. The idea was given further credence by Horace Greeley whenever he admonished people, "Go west, young man," spreading the ideals of the West, saying that you could have a good life out there as opposed to the poverty and unemployment found in a lot of large eastern cities. Besides these ideas of manifest destiny, there were actual sound reasons for America to extend westward. There was cheap and fertile land. The more land America claimed, the less the British could claim. Americans wanted western port cities so they could trade with Asia. They also realized that there were a lot of lucrative industries to be had in the West, such as fur trapping and gold mining, in addition to having fertile land for farming. And then Americans wanted to continue to spread their ideals of liberty and democracy to as many lands as possible.
To find out more about how to ace your test and get more practice for your test, click the study guide. Learn why Mometrix is the best and smartest decision you could make for your test prep choice. We have done all the work cutting through the fluff to give you what you need to perform well on your exam. Click the study guide to get started now. And thank you for watching and learning with us.